كتاب الله دستوري كتاب الله دستوري وخير الخلق أسوتنا
بسنته انجلى نوري لهدي الحق أرشدنا.
الحمد لله يضعف ما حمده جميع خلقه كما يحبه ويرضاه. اللهم صل على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. First of all, we give all praise and all thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the favors and bounties Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed on us. And we send salat and salam on his last and final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this life, as human beings, every single one of us aspire to be successful. All of us wants to be successful. And this is a quality embedded in us even when we are small. From starting school, going to our primary schools, every one of us in our class while we were at school, if we could remember, all of us, our desire was to come first in class. For our name to be called out that you have become successful, you are first. That is our attitude since we were very small. When we started our job, we wanted to excel as well. We wanted to prosper. Whatever business we go in, we would like in order to be prosperous, to be successful at the end of it. And like that, this quality Allah has embedded in us, that we want success. We aspire for success. And it is something that it is in the heart. Even though you do not see it, it is in your heart. And sometimes we look around us and we see worldly things. And we think that, you know what, this individual has gained success because of so and so. For example, we walk and we see a nice, beautiful house. We see a nice mansion, as you could see. We do not say this man is successful, but we stop and we admire it. We look how nice this house is looking. Somebody pulls up in a nice vehicle, the first in the country. Every single young fella from the masjid will go outside and they will take 5-10 minutes before they leave that vehicle. They will make sure they admire it nice. And they will say, you know what, in their hearts they will have, this man he has done well. He has been successful to be able to have such nice vehicle. So without us even uttering it, it is already embedded in our hearts. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the success is not about the worldly things. Whatever you accomplish worldly, that is not real success. If I were to bring two individuals and put them to stand here, one a lawyer and one a janitor, a lawyer and a janitor, and ask anyone here, even the smallest child, which one do you think is more successful than the other? Which one is more successful than the other? Which one do you think is successful? I am definitely sure nobody would say the janitor. Everybody would say what? The lawyer. He is successful. Because this is how we use success as being. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the real success is not what we have achieved in this life, it is what we achieved in the next life. That is real success. And that is the success that we need to try to achieve. You know, if you look at the word success in English, bringing it back down to our world and our day-to-day life. Right? Success in English means what? To have an aim or a goal and to achieve it. To achieve your aims and your goal. If you set a goal or you set an aim and you achieve it, you are successful. That is what success is about. So for example, if I say, you know what, I want to build a house. My aim or my goal is to build a house. If I got that opportunity and I work hard and I build that house, then after completing that house, I could rightfully say I was successful in building that house. If my aim or goal is to buy a vehicle, and I worked hard enough and earned enough money to buy and purchase that vehicle, when I got that vehicle, I could say that I am successful because that was my aim and my goal. And like this, for every single thing in this life, we could look at it like that. That is success. But what is the most important thing we need to achieve our aims and our goal in this life? We are only talking about worldly things. We're not talking about the akhirah as yet. Worldly thing. I want to build a house. What is the most important thing I need to have? My most important asset that I need to achieve building that house. Or what is the most important asset I need in order to buy that car? The most important thing that I need is time. The most important thing I need is time. If I don't have enough time, I can't do it. Right? I need time. As long as I have time and I use the time correctly, then definitely I'll be able to do it. If I waste the time that I have, I will never be able to accomplish it. So for example, I have 1 month to build this house. My aim is to build it in 1 month, but I say, you know what, I'm going to take 3 weeks vacation. Can I still build that house and be successful? You will not be able to do that. You need the time. You need time. And time is something given to everyone. Allah has given time to each and every human being. You could be rich or poor, all of us, we have that. We have time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's why He says, wal asr, I swear by time. Because time, if you want success, you have to utilize your time wisely. That's the first thing. If you do not use it correctly, you do not use it wisely, then you cannot achieve, if you cannot even achieve worldly things by misusing your time, how could you achieve the Jannah and the Akhirah with misusing your time? So the first and foremost thing is that we need our time. So Allah says, wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr. Verily man is in a state of loss concerning his time. Then He says, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, telling us of 4 qualities if we do not want to waste, if you do not want to be losers and failures and being unsuccessful, then we need to inculcate these 4 qualities. And this is what is known as the 4 binding qualities for success. Without these 4 qualities, we cannot get success. So by utilizing our time and having these 4 qualities, then definitely we will have success. Most of us here already memorized that surah, Surah Al-Asr. I could assure majority of us that is present here had already memorized that. And most of us might have been using it in our salat as well, so we are accustomed reading it. Wal asr, and it is the second shortest surah. It is not a long surah, a very short surah. But if you look at where did Allah place that surah, where in the Quran did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala place that surah? That surah is chapter 103. Right? It is chapter 103. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala waqa'at bayn al-khusrayn. Allah placed the surah, Surah Al-Asr, between 2 losses. The main theme of Surah Asr is about innal insana lafi khusr, mankind is in a state of loss. That is the main thing about that surah. Innal insana lafi khusr, because he's wasting his time, he's in khusr, he's in loss. And if he wants to get out of khusr, then he has to do these things. So the main theme in the surah is khusr, and lost, in the state of loss. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places the surah between 2 khusr, between 2 losses. The surah before wal asr is which surah? That is chapter 102, which is Surah Takathur. Alhaakumut takathur hatta zurtumul maqabir. And what is it Allah is saying in Al-Hakum At-Takathur? Al-Hakum At-Takathur, wanting abundant, rivalry, to have abundance of wealth, that is diverting you away. If an individual occupies himself in only running after this dunya, will he be successful or not? He'll be unsuccessful. He will not be successful in the akhirah. So Allah is saying he will be in loss. And the only time he will recognize it is when he goes to the grave. Only then he will recognize it. So that is the surah before Wal-Asr tells us about a group of people or a category of people that is in the state of loss, which is Al-Hakum At-Takathur, those who are doing takathur. And the surah that comes after, which is chapter 104, is Surah Humaza. And how does Surah Humaza starts? Wailul likulli humazatil lumaza. Woe to every slanderer and backbiter. And what did Allah say He will do to the slanderer and backbiter? Kalla la yumbadanna fil hutama. We will surely throw him into the fire of Jahannam. So he's a successful individual or a loser. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the main theme of Surah Asr is to lose. Khusr, to be in a state of loss. And the surah before he talks of a category who is in loss, and the surah after he talks of a category who is in loss. And if you look at Surah Takathur, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says? He says, Al-Hakumut Takathur. He says, abundance, rivalry, wanting abundance of wealth, it will divert you. That is all he says in the first ayat, Al-Hakumut Takathur. But if you use a sentence like that, listen to the sentence again. Wanting a lot, wanting abundant, will divert you. But he did not say divert you from what? He didn't say at all in the surah it will divert you from what? He just says that wanting abundant, running after this dunya will divert you. Then the next ayat, Al-Hakum At-Takathur, he says, Hatta dhurtumul maqabil, until you visit the grave or until you return to the grave. But up to now in that entire surah, Allah did not say what is it that this wanting abundance of this dunya will divert you from. But in Surah Asr, he tells you what he answers the question in Surah Al-Asr. He says, what will it turn you away from or divert you from? It will divert you from إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. That is what it is diverting you from. You do not want iman, you do not want righteous deeds, you don't want to encourage one another in truthful and patience because you are too occupied with takathur. So Allah answers this in Surah Al-Asr. And if you look at the last ayat as well in Surah Takathur, the last ayat in Surah Takathur, ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. Allah ends Surah Takathur, ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ, which means then you'll be questioned about all the favors. Then you'll be questioned. That is when you go on Yawm al-Qiyamah, you'll be questioned about the favors. And what is the greatest favors we have? Wal-Asr. Wal-Asr. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends Surah Takathur. You will be questioned about your greatest favor. But what is your greatest favor? Wal-Asr. And what are you doing about Wal-Asr? Innal insana lafi khusr. Mankind is in a state of loss. So you have, and the thing is about Asr is every single one of us have it. As long as we are human beings, we have it. Different favors were given to others. Some might have more favors than others, but time is something everybody has it. And Allah says that is the greatest favor, and that is what you'll be questioned about. But yet, even though you'll be questioned about that, you're in a state of loss because you do not utilize it well. You waste your time. Innal insana lafi khusr. So let us look at this surah. Let us look at the Surah Al-Asr. It's a very short surah, but we'll deal with this surah alone tonight. Wal-Asr. So Allah begins Wal-Asr. He says, I swear by time. I swear by time. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears about something, it brings significance and importance to that thing. So because time is so significant and time is so important, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by time. Wal-Asr. And he used the word Asr. Most of us know about the term waqtun. Waqtun means what? Time. Dahr means time as well. Allah says in Surah Al-Dahr, Allah says, هَلْ أَتَى عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ هِينٌ مِنَ الدَّهْرِ لَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْئًا مَذْكُورًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, haven't it come to man that time, dahr means time as well. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, instead of saying dahar, wal dahar, or wal waqti, Allah says wal asri. Why is it that Allah used wal asr instead of wal waqt? Why is it Allah used wal asr instead of wal dahri? If you look at the word wal asr, where does wal asr come from? In the Arabic term, wal asr comes from wal asra ya'suru, which means to squeeze. When you're squeezing something, that is asira ya'suru, to squeeze. So for example, you have a soaked cloth, right? You put a cloth in a bucket of water and you take it out and you're squeezing it, you're squeezing out all the water, the liquid from it. And it remains what? It remains dry. So you squeeze it out. And like that you get the word asir. Asir in Arabic means juice. Because how do you get juice? You squeeze it from the fruit and you get the juice. So when you're squeezing it out, for example, you take an orange and you cut it in half and you're squeezing it in a glass. All the juice is coming out into the glass, and what remains? What remains in the orange? Nothing. Because all the juice has been drained out and it's in the glass. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not only swear by time, but He swear by that time that is dripping away. That time that is being squeezed out from us. It is not a time that is permanent. It is a time that is going away. Walas. Just as how you squeeze all that juice from that fruit, that is how your time is going away. It is being squeezed out from you. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wal'as, we have to understand, Wal'as, that time He is swearing by, not the time that you have forever, but He's swearing by that time that will be going away, and it will be going away from you and dripping away from you. Wal'as. Then He says, Innal insana lafi khusr. And to understand Wal'as, one scholar, Muhammad Shafi, rahimahullah, in Ma'arif al-Quran, he says, he understood Wal'as, the understanding of Wal'as from an ice vendor. From an ice vendor. In those days, they didn't have freezer. Every single home didn't have a freezer as we have today. So the people used to sell ice. They used to go around and sell the ice. And he says, I saw a man, and he had his ice and he's selling it, and he's calling out in the market, my assets are going away, my assets are melting, my capital. Because if all his ice melt out, he has nothing to sell. He put all his money into buying that ice to sell, and he's holding it and he's trying to sell it, and if nobody buys it from it, it will melt away and he will get nothing from it. He says, I understand what was asked from that ice vendor. This is the time we have, it is melting and it is melting. And if we do not utilize it well, then we'll have nothing from whatever we have put in. This is Wal'as. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Innal insana lafi khusr. Says, verily man, insan, mankind, lafi khusr is in a state of loss. And the word inna brings about definiteness. Surely, indeed, to remove any doubt. When you want to make sure that there's no doubt again in the mind of people, use the word inna to mean surely, definitely, without a doubt. Do not think I'm doubtful, or do not be doubtful of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is true, is fact. So Allah says, Innal insana, verily mankind. Right? We know Surah Nas. Allah used the term An-Nas. Nas means mankind as well. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, instead of using Nas here, He used Insan, Innal insan. When you only use an English translation, it is hard to really understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, because Surah Nas, you just read people or mankind, and then Innal insan, you will read again mankind or people. But the two words are different. Innal insan. Insan comes from the word nisyan. Nisyan in Arabic means to forget. To forget. So Allah says, verily that one who is very forgetful. Because Allah could talk to you over and over. Every day, sometime you read Wal'as. Every day, sometime we read Wal'as, because it's a very short surah. Some of us, we have Wal'as on plaques in our home, and we are seeing it every day. But yet, we are still forgetful of time. We are still forgetful of time. So Allah says, Innal insan, come from nisyan, forgetfulness. And because what? Many of us, as human beings, we tend to forget. It's natural, we tend to forget easily. When Adam alayhi salam was in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took out all his progeny, and He made that covenant, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? Allah says at that time, everyone said, yes, Bala, certainly. But Allah says, soon as He came into this world, they forgot. They're insan, they're forgetful. And like that, everyone here sitting down right now would listen and will understand well. Next week, I'm sure you can't remember, you might remember a few things, but you can't remember everything. And that is why every Friday we still have khutbahs. And sometimes the same khutbah is being given. For example, Mi'raj, this is the month of Mi'raj. How many times we hear about Mi'raj and about Salat being revealed in Mi'raj, but yet we keep on forgetting. We are forgetful, innal insan. And as well the word insan, which means mankind. Insan means mankind, but it is a singular word. Try to understand that. Insan is meaning mankind, but it is singular. It is a singular word, which means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying not only mankind, but each and every one of mankind. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word insan. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says every single human being, and Allah is pointing out each and every one of us by using that simple phrase insan. So every single one of us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to us individually. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing to us individually and addressing each and every one of us. Innal insan, all of you together. Not in a general sense, but each one. Allah is talking to you personally. And then He says, Lafi khus. He didn't say fi khusl. He says, Lafi khus. And la here is for emphasis again. Allah emphasized it. Allah says, definitely he is in a state of loss. Definitely he is in a state of loss. Khusr. Allah mentions 3 terms in the Arabic language in the Quran for loss. One of it is khasara. A second is khusran, and now is khusr. Both all coming from the same word but different patterns. So you have khasara, you have khusran, and khusr. 3 words for loss in Arabic. Now the difference between these 3. The word khasara is when you experience a loss on top of an existing loss. You have just felt a loss, and then all of a sudden you are into another loss. Another loss comes on top of that. That is known as khasara. So for example, Allah says in the Quran, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَا يَزِيدُ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. Not khusr, but khasara. Allah says we reveal the Quran as a shifa, as a cure and a mercy for the believers, but the wrongdoers only increase in loss. They didn't have iman before, so they are already in a loss itself. And now they got the Quran, but they are rejecting the Quran, they are adding onto a second loss, khasara. That is how you use the term khasara. And then you have the word khusran. Khusran is the highest form of loss. You cannot get more loss than that. If you are in the state of khusran, there's no other loss could be greater than khusran. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَدْ خَسِرُوا فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ ذَلِكَ خُسْرَانُ الْمُبِينَ. Allah says, whoever is lost in this life as well as the hereafter, He says, that is khusran. That is khusran. That is the greatest type of loss you can have. But now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word khusr in this surah. Innal insana lafi khusr. Well, man is in a state of khusr. Means he is not in that as khusran. He is not that great of a loss as khusran. Neither is he being given a loss on top of a loss, but he is in the middle. He is a balance. So he says, Innal insana lafi khusr. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, gives us an exception. He says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Says if you want to be removed from those who are in loss, if you want to not be in the category of those who are in loss, then what you have to do, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, you have to believe. First thing is believe it. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. You first have to have iman. Because whatever you do, if you don't have iman, you are losers. You become a loser. Even if you do good for your entire life and you don't have iman, you are a loser. So the first step is having iman, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except those who believe. And when we say believe, many of us are accustomed hearing that as long as you say La ilaha illallah, you're a believer. We're accustomed with that. And generally that is it. If an individual say La ilaha illallah, we from amongst the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we accept that they have become believers. They are Muslims. But a Bedouin Arab in Surah Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا. Some Bedouin Arab came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and they say, we are believers. Amanna, we are believers. Rasulullah, because they had already recited La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, so they say we are believers. Rasulullah says, no, do not say that you are believers. Say that you have accepted Islam. Say that you are Muslim. Say that you are Muslim. Do not say that you are believers. He says you'll only be believers when Iman enters your heart. Only then you will be believers, when Iman enters the heart, not by only saying it. When you say it, you are Muslim. So he says, just say that you are Muslim, but do not say you are mu'min as yet. Do not say that you are a believer. Only when that Iman enters your heart. And the next part of the ayat, he says, if you obey Allah and you obey the messenger, then you will have Iman. But just by just saying La ilaha illallah, you do not have Iman. You become a Muslim. You are a Muslim. And it tells us that when we have Iman, it shall have an effect on our actions. If you really have Iman in the heart, it shall affect your actions. And because Iman, what is the meaning of Iman? Iman means to believe. You believe. And if your belief is strong and you believe in something, then that should have a special effect on how you go about your life with your different actions. For example, if there's some fire, say a fire lighting, or all of us, we are accustomed to see stove. Right? The stove is on. All of us, we believe that is what? That is fire. Right? Anybody will say that is water. Everybody will say that is fire. We believe what? It is fire. And what do we believe about the fire? We believe that the fire will burn me if I put my finger. Right? We believe that if I put my finger in this fire, what will happen? It will burn me. So will I still put my finger in the fire? I wouldn't put my finger in the fire. Because what? You had Iman. You believe that this fire will burn me. So because you believe in your heart that this is something that will cause damage to me, I'm not going to do that. That is Iman. When you have Iman, that is what the Iman is supposed to do. So when you say, I believe in Allah, and that belief is real form in your heart, that should be your attitude. I really believe in Allah, and Allah tell me not to do this, and I will not do that. That is Iman. Not only to say La ilaha illallah. So when we have that in our hearts, we will eventually see on our limbs that we are doing actions because we have Iman. If we don't have Iman, then you will see that we are doing anything that we want. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except those who believe. If you read the Quran often, you will see there are two words Allah used for belief, for believer. Many places you will read, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu and Inna alladhina amanu. We read that study. Many ayats, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, Inna alladhina amanu. You have the term alladhina amanu. And then you have the word al-mu'minun. For example, innamal mu'minuna ikhwa. Verily the believers are brothers. You have the term qad aflahal mu'minun. Successful in these are the mu'minun. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, illa alladhina amanu, and not illa alladhina al-mu'minun. He's not saying mu'minun, he's saying amanu. There are difference between the two. You check the translation, you will see both saying believers. Right? You see, except those who believe, and then you will see the believers, al-mu'minun means the believers. But amanu is a verb in the Arabic language. Amanu is a verb. And mu'minun is a noun. Right? And the difference between a verb and a noun. A verb is something that is temporary, it's an action. And we do an action for our whole life. We do an action for a period of time. We do not do it consistently. That is a verb. So a verb is something that we do it temporarily. For example, I'm walking, I won't walk my whole life. I'll walk for a period of time and then I'll stop. I'm eating, I will not eat my whole life, I'll stop at a period of time. That is what a verb does. It is something temporary, an action that is temporary. But when there's a noun is permanent. So for example, that is a chair. It will remain a chair. It is a noun. It will always remain a chair. So like that, mu'minun is a noun and amanu is a verb. And the difference why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the two is because when you say amanu, illa alladhina amanu, except those who believe, and using it in a verb, it means that their iman is temporary. Their iman fluctuates, just like an action. Just for example, like you're walking or you're running. He says that is the exact thing happens to your iman. Your iman is sometimes you have grip, your iman has increased and you want to do a lot of good actions. Sometimes your iman has decreased and you're not doing any action. So he says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, because your iman is so and so. Sometimes it is so, sometimes it is so. So he says, except those who have that iman. But when Allah uses al-mu'minun, he says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. He says, successful indeed are those who are believers. Not those who believe, but those who are believers. Saying that this is a noun means the iman has become matured in their hearts and they are formed on the iman, and because of them being formed on the iman, that is why they are successful. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us of the qualities to help us to be successful is starting to train your iman. So he says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and those who do righteous deeds. So you have two qualities, believing and then doing righteous deeds. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. If you look at that term, عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Amilu means to do something. And Salihat means righteousness. Salihat means good. But where is deed? Many times we translate it, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. We translate Amilu Salihat as doing good deeds. But there is no deed in it. Amilu means to do something and Salihat means goodness. But it is understood. What goodness you will do? You will do a good deed. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. And Allah uses the word amilu. Right? In Arabic again, there are two words used for action, to do something. There's one is fi'l, fa'ila, which means to do, and amila means to do as well. So you have fa'ala means to do, and amila means to do. So you have two words. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word amila. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, doing righteous deeds. The difference between these two words, the word fa'ala and the word amila, is that fa'ala is an action which is done unconsciously. An action, fa'ala, is an action which is done unconsciously, and amila is an action which is done consciously. So you have actions in Arabic which are done unconsciously, and you have actions in Arabic which are done consciously. So for example, I am breathing. Do I have to think to breathe? That is an action that is done unconsciously. I don't have to use my brain and think too much to breathe. By seeing, I don't have to think if I have to see or not. It just happens. Allah made us in such a way that it happens. It happens unconsciously. That is fa'ala. Those are actions that are done unconsciously. You're just doing it. And then there are actions in Arabic that you have to think before you do it. You have to ask yourself, should I do this or should I not do this? For example, your salat. It just doesn't salat just like that. You think, I have to go and pray salat. I have to stand like this. Those are actions that you are thinking about. So Allah says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. These are the first two qualities. So you have iman and amal. And that is why many ayats of the Quran, Allah will bring the two together. This is the most important. If you want to be successful, you have to have at least these two. This is the first two. Amanu wa amilu salihat, iman and righteous deed. We cannot say, I am a believer and I don't do no righteous deeds. I will still be a loser. If I say I'm a believer and I don't do no righteous deeds, I'll be a loser. If I'm doing righteous deeds and I don't have belief, then I'll still be a loser again. So you have to join the two together, iman and amal. Amanu wa amilu salihat. And Ibn Taymiyyah, he says, the reason why a lot of people do not want to accept iman and they do not want to do righteous deeds is because of two obstacles that are blocking them from doing that. There are two obstacles that is in their pathway why they do not want to have iman and they do not want to do righteous deeds. He says these two obstacles are, one is shubuhat and the other is shahawat. So you have shubuhat and shahawat. Shubuhat means doubt. You are doubtful. And shahawat means desire, vain desires, your lust. So he says these are the two main obstacles that will prevent someone from having iman and doing righteous deeds. Because, for example, shubuhat is doubt. A man might hear about Islam, he listens something about Islam, he reads something about Islam, but yet he is in doubt. I'm in doubt. You know what? I still have a little doubt. I don't want to come in as yet. So he has that doubt in his head. And the next thing is shahawat. Shahwat, a man might read and say, you know what, this religion song nice, but you know what, I can't leave out my lifestyle. My drinking and my little alcohol every now and then, I can't leave that out. I like to eat my little pork every now and then. I'm not going to leave that out. So your religion song is nice, but I can't handle that. So you do not want to stay away from his shahwat, his desires. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says now, Allah tells us of two things that will remove those two obstacles. The two things to remove those two obstacles, one is وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, encouraging one another with truth. The only way you could remove doubt in a person's mind is by showing them the haqq and the truth. As long as you show them the haqq and you continue to give them proofs, and they can have that understanding and their doubt could be removed, then that is the way to go. That is tawasaw bil haqq. You're able to remove their doubt by showing them the truth. And then the second one is shahwat, their desires. The only way you could remove an individual's desires is to encouraging him to persevere. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Right? And there are three types of sabr. When we reach down to the word sabr, we'll understand sabr a little more. Right? Sabr is something that could remove you from shahwat, because you will have plenty desires, but if you have patience and you have perseverance and you're able to abstain, then definitely those desires become small. They become small in front of your eyes. So these are the two obstacles you have, which is doubt and desires. And Allah has given us two remedies to remove doubt and desires, which is وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ and وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Now let us go on to the next two. The next two qualities. So we already concrete with the first two qualities, iman and amal. The next two qualities, Allah says, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. These are the second two. So we say 4 binding qualities for success. So we have the first two. The next two, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Encouraging one to do good, as well as encouraging to sabr. But if you think about it carefully, to encourage somebody to do good, isn't that a good deed already? If I'm going to encourage, Allah says before what? Amilu salihat, doing righteous deeds. But when I'm encouraging someone to do good, am I not already doing a righteous deed there as well? I'm doing a righteous deed by encouraging others. If I'm encouraging somebody to have patience, I'm doing a righteous deed. So there was no need to repeat وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, because وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ and وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ is already in وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, because they are a form of good deeds already. But because they are so important, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala separated it. And if you understand this entire surah, this surah is only one sentence. The surah is only one sentence. We know in the Quran you will see wal-as as one ayat, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ as a second ayat, and إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ as a third ayat. But in total, all 3 ayats are actually one sentence. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He does, because each part of that sentence is so important, Allah breaks it up into 3 different ayats. Because Allah wants you to focus on each thing. Allah do not want you to focus on a whole sentence. Allah wants you to focus on one thing at a time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala broke it up into 3 ayats. But in reality, it is one sentence. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. Right, the third quality for success is وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, which is encouraging one another to the truth. Right, and the word He uses, وَتَوَاصَوْا, come from word tawasi. Right, we are accustomed hearing what amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. Allah did not say wa amru bil haqq, and they should command to good. He did not say command to the truth. He says wa tawasaw bil haqq, not amru. Because the word tawasaw comes from the word wasiya. Wasiya in Arabic, it is known as a will. Right, if you were to make a will for your children or for someone, that is known as a wasiya. So here, wa tawasaw. And when you make a will, what is the reason of making a will? Why do we make a will? Because of our concern for those who we have left behind. Right? I'm concerned of my children, I'm concerned of these people behind, my brothers, my sister. So I'm going to make a will because of your concern. Right? Because you're concerned. And then what will you put in that will? You're trying to put something good for them. You're trying to put something, some of the best treasures that they could use it to better themselves. So you put some cash in it, you put a piece of lot or something, a lot of land in it, because you know what? This is something valuable. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when you're going to invite people to the truth, you need these two qualities as well. You need these two qualities as well. What are the two qualities? One of the qualities is you need to have concern for the people who you are going to invite to the truth. You're not just going to go up in front of them and say, hey, you have to stop drinking alcohol, hey, you have to come to the masjid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that you encourage one another with love and concern. Just as how you would sit down and you write out a will out of your love and concern for your others. Similarly, when you're going to advise others, that is the kind of love and concern you should have. So you should think about how I should go about in such a way that they will accept it and it will not hurt them. So that is one quality. And then when you are giving it, you should give them something which is valuable. Means ensure that when you're giving it, you put it over to them in such a way that they could grasp it. They could grasp it in such a way that they have earned a valuable treasure like if you have given them a will. Watawasaw. So Allah says, Watawasaw bil haqq. Allah says, bil haqq. And the bil haqq, if you look at the ba there, the ba for bil haqq, you have ba kestra b, so you get bil haqq. The B there have three different meanings for B. Right? B could use as an adverb. Right? You could use B as an adverb. You could also use B as a preposition. So for example, when you say bil haq, it could mean, if you use it as an adverb, it could mean that you encourage one another truthfully as an adverb. So you encourage one another truthfully, because the B is an adverb, so you'll get truthfully. So you encourage one another truthfully. Or it could be a preposition, which means you encourage one another with the truth. The word with there. So encourage one another with the truth. And also it could mean you encourage one another to the truth. So you have three meanings of the word be. So when you hear the word bil haq, it can mean truthfully, with the truth, and to the truth. So for example, if you want to go down on the little details of that. So you say, Watawasaw bil haq. You're encouraging one another truthfully. Means when you're going to encourage them to do good, you should do it honestly and truthfully. You know, sometimes we go and we try to invite someone, but they might be our close friends, they might be our family. And we know the full truth, but we are scared. We're scared to tell them the full truth, so we tell them half of the truth. We tell them only that part that they will feel nice, and the other part that might affect them, we leave it out. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, you should do it truthfully and honestly, means tell them the full truth. Not part of the truth or half of the truth. Tell them the entire truth if you're going to encourage them to the truth. And then when he says, Watawasaw bil haq, by the meaning of to the truth, with the truth, it means that when you're advising them to the truth, you need to use proofs. You need to use the Quran and the Hadith to show them that this is the proof that what you're doing is something good, or that what you're doing is not something good. So when you're saying with the truth, means you use things as evidence and proof to show that this is the truth. You don't go and say, I think it is so and so, and I feel it is so and so. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, make sure that you know well before you go as well. Not that only thinking, make sure you have the knowledge good, so that when you're going to put it over to them, you're putting it over with all the proofs and the evidence so that they will be able to accept it. And then when you say to the truth, if you use the be to means to the truth, it means that you're encouraging one another to come on to obedience, start to obey Allah. That is the meaning of to the truth. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the truth. And as we all know the truth, to Islam, obedience to the Quran, to the Sunnah. So we encourage one another. This should be our action. And it shows us that Islam is not a religion that we only do good actions and we sit back and we say yes. At least I am fine. I am successful. Islam is about sharing. Islam is about propagating, not only for our own self. So even though we are doing righteous deeds, Allah says another binding quality is that you need to encourage those who are not doing righteous deeds. And we have heard many times of the story of the man from Bani Israel, whom he was doing so many good deeds, and Allah said to destroy him first. So we'll not go into that story. Most of you have already heard that story. So it shows you that we as people that we should encourage one another. Believe, do righteous deeds, encourage to the truth, and also encourage one another to be patient. Encourage one another to be patient. As for encouraging to the truth, there was just one incident with Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. Umar bin al-Khattab, while he was a Khalifa, he was making his rounds in the night. And through a window, he saw a man was drinking alcohol. And you know, in his time, he used to flog those who would drink intoxicant and wine. See, while he's making his rounds in the night, he saw through this window and he saw this man drinking alcohol. So he went to and he opened the door, went into the man and hold him and said, "Why are you doing? I just caught you drinking alcohol." The man said to him, "You did more than what I did. You did more harm than what I did. You did more sin than what I did." So Umar stood back and wanted to hear, "What more sin I committed more than you? You were just drinking alcohol." So the man said, "First, you shouldn't have watched in my house without permission. You didn't have the right to watch in my house without permission. Next thing, you need to ask permission before you enter into my house. You just went in my house just like that. And the third is you accused me without asking me for evidence and proof." So you did 3 more. So Umar realized that, you know what, I was wrong. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he let him go. And after a few days passed, Umar radiallahu anhu, he was doing a sermon. After the sermon, he saw the man came. And the man was sitting. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he went next to the man. He said, "You know what, since that incident with you that night, I never watched in nobody's house again. I never watched in nobody's house and I never entered without permission because of you." And that man, he says, "From that day, I never drank alcohol after that later. I stopped drinking that same night as well." It shows you that the way how you go about it, because he just allowed him to go. Afterwards, that by itself was a means of a reminder, and he himself quits. He himself said, "You know what, I'm not going to drink again. Next time, I might get catch again, and that will be it." So that means of how we encourage others. And Allah says, "Watawassaw bis-sabr," and encouraging one another with patience. When we are involved in inviting people, one of the things that happens is a lot of people tells us bad things. And this is natural. For example, you go and you try to advise somebody to something, they say, "Who is you? Who is you to tell me that? You are some kind of sheikh, some kind of imam. Leave it for the imam to tell me. You don't tell me anything." Right? Sometimes you go to brother's house to do a little gush, and they start to chase us from the gate. Say, "Go away from here. We don't want to hear nothing from you." Right? At those points of time, you feel bad. Because it's natural. We are all human beings. There's no one that could be insulted in front of your face and say, "You know what, I didn't feel anything." You will feel hurt inside. And that's why we see people, when those kind of things happen, what they do, they say, "You know what, that house, I'm not going back there." And we see people sometimes, they say, "You know what, that masjid, that imam insult me, I'm not going back at that masjid again." They start to lose hope. Say, "You know what, they're in despair." Those people now, what they need? They need somebody to boost them up. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "You know what, whilst you're doing that and you see all of that, encourage one another." You see somebody tell someone something, you go and you encourage. Try to show them you need to have patience. And when you do that, you'll be building up the spirit. And there are 3 types of patience. When we have a patience, the first thing comes to our mind is when we are sick or when somebody dies, we need to have patience because Allah has taken a mark or Allah has put that sickness. But patience, there are 3 types. One is to do good deeds, to be steadfast on good deeds. Right? To be steadfast on good deeds. When we are steadfast on good deeds, it is only out of sabr we could be doing good deeds. If we have no sabr, we will not be able to do good deeds. We need to have sabr, because to be able to pray your salat every day, you need sabr. Because you come one day you pray, you come 2 days you pray, shaitan will tempt you to do something else and you will bust it from there. There's no praying again. You need perseverance and patience to continue to do your good deeds. So the number one type of patience is to be consistent and persevere in doing good deeds. The second type of patience is to stay away from those things which are prohibited. Because that by itself, to stay away, is also a form of patience. You're being tempted, your friends are calling you to do so and so, and you're saying, "What? I have to have patience at this time." Right? So to stay away is a form of patience. And the third type of patience is what we all know. Whenever we are sick, we are afflicted with some kind of calamity, we try to persevere and have patience. So this is the ayah. These are the 4 qualities. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And the Sahabas, whenever they meet one another, whenever they reach up to one another, they will not depart from one another except they will recite this surah. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Because it is a means of reminder. And Imam Shafi, rahimahullah, what he says that if no other surah was revealed in the Quran, if only Wal-As alone was revealed in the Quran, just that 1 3-line surah was revealed in the Quran, he says that would have been sufficient for this whole ummah. Just Wal-As alone, just that short surah. So when we are reading it in our salah, we need to reflect on it, not just speed down the road with it. Whilst we are reading it, we need to think and go through it and try to understand, what is it I'm saying? This is a reminder for me. Am I falling into the category of these 4 qualities? And some scholars say, the interpretation, to put it in a simple example form, says if you're drowning, right? You're drowning and you're unconscious. So for example, Allah says you're in qusr, you're in loss. So let us use a scenario if you're drowning and you're unconscious. What's the first thing you need to do? The first thing you need to do is wake up. That's the first thing you need to do. And when you wake up is like your iman. Right? When you're in darkness, the first thing you need to do is what? Open your eyes. You need to start to build your iman. You need to wake up. So this man, he's unconscious and he's drowning. The first thing you need to do, you need to snap out of it and wake up. Now if this man, he wakes up and he realizes, hey, I'm drowning, and he just say, but best I sleep back. I'm drowning, but I don't feel like thing. Best I just continue to sleep. You say that man is insane. Nobody will do that. Because as soon as you wake up, what you'll do, the next step of doing is fighting up. Even if you don't know how to swim, you start to kick up to try to get out and not being able to drown and not die. So for example, we have iman. The next step is to do what? Is amal as-salih. We say, all right, I believe, and we start to sleep again. We start to sleep. Then we are insane if we do not do the righteous actions. So the second step is trying to fight out, trying to swim to reach to the top. Now, for example, we reach to the top, and then all of a sudden we see that our foot is straying to someone else. Our foot is straying to someone else. So for example, our brother or our wife, our foot is straying to that individual. They were also drowning, and we wake up first, right? We swim to try to escape, and then all of a sudden we realize, my foot is trapped. What will we do? If I do not try to save that individual, then I will also drown. I will also drown. So what I need to do now, I need to go back down and try to save. That is what tawasaw bil haqq. Right? So even though you are saved, you have your iman and you are doing your righteous deeds, you still need to save those others, or else you yourself will drown as well. So you need to go back there. And when you go back there and you save that one and you come up to the shore, and then you realize that a chain is hooked from that one onto someone else now. So you save who? You save your wife, for example, and then you see your brother, his foot is chained there, or your child foot is chained. What do you have to do now? You have to go back down again. And then when you come up, you see someone else's foot is chained. You have to go back down. And if you say, I fed up with this, I can't make it again, what will happen? Everybody will drown. If you say, I fed up, I can't handle this, going up and coming on, going up and coming on, I just finish with it, let everybody drown. It will be, nobody will do that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. You need to have patience, because you'll be inviting and inviting and inviting, and yet you might, at some point in time, you might say, you know what, I give up, I don't need with this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And these 4 qualities is telling us of the minimum qualities of success. That is why I put the name of the topic as 4 binding qualities for success. Because without these 4, you cannot be successful. Cannot be successful. You have to have these 4. For example, an individual is in a house. Right? You're in a house, and the house is on fire, and you have to pass 4 doors to be able to come out. Would you say, you know what, I'm only going to go through 2 doors and then I'm going to relax? You cannot do that. You cannot say, I'm going to only pass 3 doors and I'm going to relax. You need to pass through all 4 doors to be saved. And this is what these 4 qualities are about. We need to be able to have them to be saved. And for example, if an individual says, you're a worker and your boss gives you 4 tasks, 4 things to do. You say, you know what, I'm going to give you 4 things to do for today. 2 of them you like and 2 you do not like. Right? So you say to yourself, you know what, I'm only going to do the 2 things that I like, and I'm not going to do the other 2 things that I don't like. And at the end of the day, you went and you did those 2 things real good, extremely good, 100%. Then when the boss comes in the evening now and he asks you, how was the task? And you show him, I did this and I did this, and it is real good. Then he asks you, what about the other 2? And you say, no, I didn't really like that. But you look at this 2 that I did. What do you think that boss will tell you? Tell you, pack your bags and go. You'll be fired. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us. It's not that even if you do the number 1 and the number 2 perfect, 100%, it is better that you do all 4, even though all 4 might be 50%, at least you cover all 4. So our main focus is trying to have these 4 qualities in order to be successful. And that is why one scholar, he says this surah is very severe. The kind of threat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in this surah, that He has made khasara and He has made loss for those who do not have these 4 qualities. It says all mankind is lost, and the only time mankind can be saved is when they can inculcate all 4 qualities, not leaving out anyone. We have to have all 4 qualities, and only then inshallah we'll be successful. So this inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us utilize our time wisely. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us in His obedience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assist us in implementing those 4 qualities in our life, our iman, amal salih, righteous deeds, encouraging one another to good as well as towards patience. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of our hard work and our efforts in this life, and grant us all Jannatul Firdaus. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
كتاب الله دستوري وخير الخلق أسوتنا
بسنته انجلى نوري لهدي الحق أرشدنا
كتاب الله دستوري وخير الخلق أسوتنا بسنته انجلى نوري لهدي الحق أرشدنا كتاب الله دستوري وخير الخلق أسوتنا.